Hello, deathlings! A question I get all the time, and a question that is not discussed nearly enough, is if I am a fat or very fat person, what will happen to my body when I die? What are my options for cremation or burial? By the way, if you have arrived on this here video to say some hateful stuff, that's not what we're doing today. I'm stretching out my comment blocking finger. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. There's a lot of fear that I hear from fat people who, by the way, tell me they prefer I use the term fat, so that's what I'll use. The fear is that when they die, their body will be treated poorly. Author and activist Marianne Kirby said, "I don't actually have high hopes for my corpse being treated with respect. The fat corpse has been the hinge of too many jokes." We also talked to Joy Nash, star of Dietland, who said people act like there won't be a place for fat people when we die. Too fat to cremate, too fat to bury, are we just too fat to be dead? Are they going to dump us out on the sidewalk? First, it's important to know that any dead body can be accommodated. No matter the size or shape, there is a way to give you a burial or cremation. That being said, the funeral industry does have some catching up to do. Options for morbidly obese people, as the medical industry would term them, are often limited and more expensive. So what are the realities of how the funeral industry handles a very fat body? Let's start with caskets. Yes, there are specialized caskets that can accommodate larger and taller bodies. For those weighing 300 pounds or about 22 stone and above, an oversized casket might be required. Over what size, you're asking? Unclear. These are just the industry terms, and I want you to have that vocabulary. So a standard casket is about 24 to 27 inches wide, whereas certain oversized casket makers can make caskets as wide as 52 inches, accommodating a person who is well over 500 pounds, even up to 1,000 pounds. And while oversized caskets aren't the norm in a casket showroom, more and more funeral homes are stocking them, or working with casket makers who make custom caskets, so that's a positive. Some casket makers can make standard size caskets larger inside by making the sides of the caskets thinner. This is important because a larger person can go inside a standard casket and then still fit in a standard cemetery plot. That brings us to the next burial consideration, plot and vault size. Standard burial plots and vaults are, not shockingly, designed to fit these standard caskets. If a fat person requires a larger casket, then they require a larger plot. And unfortunately, not all conventional or traditional cemeteries have been designed to accommodate this. A person may need to find a spot in a cemetery where there's extra space to expand a plot. Most traditional cemeteries have these sort of pre-sized standard plots, so squeezing a bigger plot between two standard plots isn't possible, and some cemeteries will require a person to buy 2 plots. So the right cemetery with the available space is necessary to find. And if you're over 400 pounds or like 29 stone, you might want to think about this as you're creating your death plan. You're also probably wondering, how much is this all going to cost? Unfortunately, and I'm not saying this is great, larger caskets, larger cemetery plots, and post-mortem care for very fat bodies are typically going to cost more. It takes more people to pick up, move, or arrange a very fat body. Casket makers charge more for these oversized or custom caskets. A larger grave has to be dug, and if a person is embalmed, often 3 to 4 times as much embalming fluid must be used, and it takes more time to embalm correctly. So burying a very fat body in a traditional cemetery can cost $800 to $3,000 more than a standard price plan. What about cremation? While not all crematories are equipped to handle the cremation of a very fat individual, it is absolutely possible. Cremating a very fat body requires more heat for a longer amount of time. The cremation does need to be handled carefully, because if the heat rises too quickly, meaning the fat is incinerated too quickly, black smoke could choke the machine. And because of this, many crematories will cremate larger bodies in the morning, starting when the bricks of the machine are cold. But a good crematory person knows how to do that. Another consideration is getting the body into the machine. Standard chamber doors on retorts are usually 33 inches wide, but now larger machines can have doors as wide as 52 inches. Such machines could, in theory, handle a corpse up to 1,000 pounds. But be prepared that not every crematory has this type of machine. We're really fortunate at my funeral home that we do work with a crematory that has one of these machines, so it's not an issue with our families. These bigger machines do come with a bigger price tag because more energy and natural gas is used for the cremation process. The vast majority of crematories are going to charge a little more for bodies over 300 pounds. This extra cost could range anywhere from $100 to $500 in the US. Our funeral home usually tries to offset that cost in other ways for the family if they choose cremation. As for alkaline hydrolysis or aquamation, no, it's not readily available or legal everywhere yet, but most standard machines can handle a human up to about 500 pounds. So that's another reason to push for alkaline hydrolysis in your community. At this point, you might be thinking, gee, that all sounds kind of dire. If I'm fat, or if I love someone who's fat, what can I do? Well, one of the most important things I can emphasize is being honest about size with your funeral director. This is an issue I've experienced, where either a loved one or a nurse is too embarrassed to tell us that the dead person is over 350 pounds. So when we get to the home to transport the body, we are ill-equipped. We don't have the right size cot, or we don't have enough people to move the body. When we're not properly prepared, this can be painful for the family, which is the last thing we want to do to a grieving person. I know it's not easy for everyone to have the conversation about size or weight, especially if it's been traumatic or difficult in the past, but being willing to talk about your loved one's size can alleviate so much stress for all involved when planning a funeral. And as I said, consider being upfront about being fat in your death plan while you're still alive. Our population is getting bigger. Ignoring that fact is unrealistic as a social model and a business model. Funeral homes should acknowledge their larger caskets and services. It's not a secret. Both sides, the family and the funeral home, need to be able to have a respectful, honest, transparent discussion about the dead person's size and what that's going to mean for the burial or cremation. This idea was echoed by author and activist Lesley Kinzel, who told us failing to address the different needs of fat bodies has the potential to turn the process into a traumatic one, instead of one that provides peace and closure. I think creating death plans should be fun and cathartic in some ways, and it's a real shame if that is taken away because there's fear of not being respected or accommodated. Lastly, and you know I had to go here, green or natural burial could be a really great option for very fat people. No coffin or casket is required, no embalming, no cremation, no burial vault, just a corpse and a hole in the ground, and it's lovely out there. I had to. I hope you learned something today. That's 2 old school Ask a Morticians in a row. I did it for you. Are you not entertained? This video was made with generous donations from death enthusiasts just like you. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4.